So, are you planning a theme park trip for this summer? I know I am, and I want to talk to you about how to plan the best theme park trip for yourself, for your family, for your friends, whomever's coming with you, because a lot of theme parks are going to start opening up very shortly here. I mean, we're in March now. And so we really need to start talking about this and get us, you, me, ready for summer fun. Welcome to the Strength, Yoga, and Freedom Podcast. My name is Justin. This is the podcast where we use the philosophy of yoga in a very practical and everyday way, one small step at a time, to become happier people and really to create more happiness and more joy. So I have a lot to talk about when it comes to this topic with regards to theme parks. If you've been listening to me or following me for a little while, you know that theme parks are one of my most favorite things to do. And I wanted to talk about this because, well, how do theme parks really have anything to do with yoga? And, you know, like how do we correlate those two? How do those two things really match up? How do they get intertwined? Well, there's a lot of things that go intertwined with yoga and theme parks. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that very briefly, and then we're going to get into planning. Now, because I have so much to talk about, there are going to be two episodes with this topic. The first episode, which is the one that you are listening to or watching right now, we're going to talk about kind of those pre-planning stages. What are the things you need to start thinking about, looking at, doing the research on now before you even get ready to go? And then what we're going to do in the second episode is we're really going to talk about what happens when the time comes and it's time to start looking at the clothes you're going to wear, the things that you want to bring with you or for your kids, those kind of packing essentials, and how to attack the theme park day the best that you can. So we're going to be doing that in two episodes. I hope that you're ready and excited about this because I certainly am. I got my hat on. If you're watching me on YouTube, this is what I usually wear when I go to my theme parks. I love getting a little protection from the sun when it comes to that, but we're going to talk more about that in the next episode when it comes to the stuff you bring. So let's come back to, first of all, the two things that I really want to talk to you about when it is in regards to how a theme park trip and yoga are connected. So first of all, realize that theme parks create a lot of joy for millions and millions and millions and millions of people throughout the world. It is one of the top things that people do for entertainment. If you really look at the theme park industry, theme parks do compete against each other to a degree, but theme parks really are competing against other forms of entertainment, especially now in the age that we're in where everything is kind of digitally found for us. It's on our phones, it's on, TV, it's everywhere streaming. So theme parks compete with that, especially in the younger generation. When I was younger, there were no cell phones. So there wasn't being on your phone and doing games that connect with other kids. There was no Xbox Live and multiple gaming situations. There was none of that. So as the theme parks compete, they are competing with anything that's entertainment. And so one of the things that we find in yoga is joy. And so going to a theme park can also be filled with joy if you're doing it right. And so they can cause headaches. And that's the number two thing I want to relay to you is, when you actually go to a theme park, you have to exercise a lot of different things while you're there, like patience, like letting things go and going with the flow sometimes, like facing fears if you're kind of afraid to go on certain types of rides. And I'm not talking about things that make you physically ill. I'm talking about just being afraid of something. Getting out of your comfort zone, treating others with respect when we're talking about lines and crowds and standing with food items and the way you navigate yourself through a theme park, that relates to yoga. Knowing when enough is enough relates to yoga, when you need to take breaks. So you can call all of this intentional. I call this intentional because you know and I know that traveling or going anywhere, especially when you're going with younger kids or there's groups of people, it can create a lot of turmoil. So we are talking about joy and we're talking about intention. Those two things are directly correlated to the practice of yoga. And when you're doing things in your day-to-day life that are you're working towards progress and purpose, excuse me, and moving yourself forward, you are staying intentional, and that includes when you're going on vacation to a theme park. So there's a lot that you're going to hear me discuss when I talk about these certain tips that kind of correlates to yoga. That's the goal of this podcast. But I want you to keep those two things in your mind: the joy that you're going to find during the day and the happiness, and also the intention behind what you are doing while you are at the theme parks. So let's get right into this topic. I actually have 10 things I'm going to cover with you, 5 here, 5 in the next episode. So let's get right into the first topic, which is the different types of theme parks. Now, this is not a comprehensive, kind of, these are the 3. I have 3 categories of theme parks. I kind of place them in 3 categories. You don't have to place them in 3 categories. I'm doing that because it helps me to give tips this way, and it might help you to kind of look at the overall landscape of how the theme park world is situated and organized in the country that you live in or the world. So when we're talking about 3 different types of theme parks, I break them down into kind of these destination resort style theme parks. I break another category into more of a regional mega park. And then we have these local traditional parks. Now, some of these can interchange based on what you're doing and how you're going to approach it. Remember the intention. But those 3 categories are really what we're looking at. We're working with those destination style theme parks. For example, you might consider the Disney parks to be one of those. Maybe you're going to a Disney park that's overseas. We're talking about parks that have multiple parks in one location. So sometimes, like I mentioned Disney, you have Disney Tokyo, and they have a couple different parks there. You have a park in France, in Paris, Disneyland Paris. There's multiple parks there. Here in the United States, you have Walt Disney World, which is the most frequented and most highly attended theme park organization and resort destination in the world. There are 4 theme parks there with 2 water parks and so on in the downtown Disney Springs area. So that's kind of what we're talking about when we talk about resort style. Universal also has parks that are like that. We could use Florida again as the example. You have the Universal Orlando Resort, which has 2 theme parks, soon to be 3 because they're opening the Epic Universe. So you have these multiple destination style resort theme park. Those are parks that you might fly to because you don't live very close. You might use a whole week long of vacation to go there. So these are parks that you generally maybe not, you're going to drive there and you're going to get there in one day. You might have to take multiple days to either drive or you fly there or you take another mode of transportation, but you're generally there a lot longer. Now, these regional parks, you might be able to get to that park in one day, and you might spend one day there, or you might spend multiple days. These types of parks are more like regional. I call them a mega park because they have other things that go on. A lot of them have water parks that are included, or maybe a separate ticket. We're going to talk about this in a minute. But these are parks that are usually part of a bigger chain of parks that have a lot of parks throughout either the country or the world or the continent that you're on, whatever that might be. So this may be the Six Flags parks. We know that's a big chain. The Cedar Fair parks, the SeaWorld Parks and Entertainment parks, and that name is changing. I know SeaWorld Parks and Entertainment is changing names. I'm not sure when that's going to happen, but at the time of the filming of this, it is still SeaWorld Parks and Entertainment. There's also Hershend Entertainment, and there's some others, but these are kind of the regional park that's nearest to you. So if you are planning this regional theme park trip, you might be driving 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours. And if you are a coaster enthusiast or someone who likes to kind of sample all the other parks, you may kind of do some park hopping. And I don't mean the same park hopping you would do at Disney, but I'm talking about you might take a road trip and maybe drive to, let's say, in Virginia, you might go to Busch Gardens, Williamsburg, and then you might also tack on Kings Dominion. They're only maybe an hour or hour and a half away from each other. So those are kind of those like regional mega parks. And then you have like a local and traditional theme park. That would be like, there are many that are still in chains and that are owned by a chain they're chain parks, but you may not consider them necessarily a mega park. And again, remember, these could switch up categories, but this might be something like Knoebels in Pennsylvania, or Kennywood in Pennsylvania, or Holiday World, which is in Indiana, or another smaller park that you might frequent for the day. It's smaller, it might be a little more quaint, it might not have as many rides, it may not have a water park, it's not as huge with the roller coasters. These mega parks, the regional ones I talked about, a lot of the draw is the roller coasters and the rides and the water park. These smaller ones, they're traditional, they're fun, they're exciting, they have their own purpose. So remember, these parks can cross over depending on what your intention is and what's the joy that you're seeking from these parks. Always keep that in mind. Now, a lot of theme park attendance comes from those big resort style destinations. So these may be open year round. You can visit really any time of the year, okay? And you may need to spend a week there for vacation. Typically people, like I said, that go to regional parks might go there for a day or two, maybe 3 days. And then the local ones might be the day trip. But the thing is you need to decide, okay, how much time am I going to invest in my theme park trip this year? Am I going just for the day? And you also need to figure that out when it comes to your budget, which we're gonna talk about too. Am I going just for the day? Am I going for a couple of days? Am I going for the week? Which one of these categories would you place the park in that you're going to, or the resort that you're going to? And then how long am I going to spend there? So that's the first tip, is the different types of parks, and then how long are you going there based on what that park has to offer you. So let's go on to number 2. When are you going? Now I mentioned that some theme parks are open year-round, depending on the weather and where they're located. So resort destination parks generally are open year-round, like the Disney properties, the Universal properties. So this may be a time when you go in the winter time and not your local regional park or your local park is not open, so you go to a destination park like that. So if you may do that, but you may also add on when you're going to these bigger resort style parks, you may also add on, let's pretend you're gonna go to Universal Orlando, which has 2 parks, but you're gonna go to the water park that's there, which is Volcano Bay, and you're going to maybe spend a day at the hotel, but you also wanna just visit SeaWorld, which is right down the road. Well, then you might add on SeaWorld to that. You need to watch your operating calendars and notice what's going on in those big resort style theme parks. And are you going to spend the whole week there? Or are you going to kind of move around if there's another park or two that you want to visit, which is in the same area? Typically, you would do that maybe in Florida or in California, where the weather is pretty decently nice, Southern California specifically, where the weather is, pretty good for you to be outside, during that time. So as you're going, make sure that when you're going to these bigger kind of resort style theme parks, you check a couple of things. One, you need to make sure you check the operating hours. The operating hours for these parks during the kind of the winter months is very different than it is in the summer months. So make sure you check that. And 2, make sure you check your ride closures. A lot of rides go down when the parks are less busy. As I said before, the regional the resort destinations are some of the biggest attended parks out there. So because of that, they don't shut down at all. So they are maintaining certain rides at certain times. If you or your kids or your family or whomever it is have a particular ride that you love or you want to make sure you ride, you need to watch the ride closure schedule, which will be on the website for your park that you're going to. So always check hours and check your ride closures for maintenance during the time that you're going when it comes to the operating calendar, because when you're going, you need to be looking at that operating calendar. Now, when we're talking about regional theme parks and the operating calendar, these start to open, like coming up now in March, like Hershey Park in Pennsylvania opens at the end of the month. California's Great America opens up, Kings Dominion, Silver Dollar City, Dollywood. So a lot of these parks are going to open in the month of March. Now, typically when some of these regional mega parks open like that, or even local ones, they may have just weekend operations to begin. So you want to check the operating calendar, because they're not open every day all the time. So check that as well. You may only be able to go on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, or maybe Friday nights and Saturday and Sunday. So check that out. And then there are a lot of local theme parks too, besides just those regional ones that open, in the spring months. Now, one of the things to note here when it comes to deciding what you want to be doing when you're going is if you're looking for water parks. Remember that water parks generally, for most of the theme parks that don't operate year round. So we're talking about seasonal parks, which is the majority of parks out there are seasonal. Your destination parks like Disney and Universal, they'll have water park open because it's warm enough. But in like those other parks I just mentioned, like maybe Dollywood or Silver Dollar City or King's Dominion, those types of those water parks that go with those parks don't always open until Memorial Day weekend. So always watch that. So if you're looking for something that, in the operating calendar, like, ooh, I want to go to the park and the water park, realize in the spring, not always open. But there are spring events at a lot of the parks that open in the spring. For example, Dollywood has a flower and food festival in the spring. Hershey Park has spring weekends. Busch Garden and SeaWorld parks do Mardi Gras celebrations. There's other parks that do Mardi Gras themed things as well. So you may have, instead of a water park, you might be there with a seasonal event. A springtime event, which can be really fun as you're getting back out there into the, outside as the weather's changing and so on. So now, what if you're going in the summer months? So you might, think, okay, spring, not everything's open, and it's a little bit different. I don't know if I want to do that. All right. Well, most parks are really full of events from Memorial Day all the way through Labor Day. Okay, so this is when many, many, many parks, though, start to see those crowds. So if you're planning on going, you know that there's going to be crowds during Memorial Day all the way through Labor Day. If you go before that and you go after Labor Day, you're kind of in that sort of operational part of the calendar where everything's not open to full capacity just yet. So that might be another tip that you might want to be thinking about. If you're not looking for big lines, or you don't care about seeing shows, or you don't care about some of the other thing, or even the water park, you just want to ride rides, that's a great time to go, maybe in the spring or in between Labor Day and when the Halloween stuff starts, which I'm going to talk about in a moment. So know that, your parks in the summer are also going to have extended hours. They're going to have lots of shows. There's going to be some nighttime things that go on, some nighttime summer festivals. There's parks that have like summer nights. There's parks that have fireworks. There's parks that do laser shows. I mean, there's all kinds of water effect shows. Those types of things happen in the evening hours when the parks are open later, or, they're open for maybe a particular month during those summer months. And not everything has been announced for this year yet, so keep watching your favorite parks calendar. If you're a member of a coaster club like ACE, which is the American Coaster Enthusiasts, there might be other events that organization puts on that you can go to at a particular park as well. And some people travel for that, which is super cool. So keep an eye on the summer things. One of my favorite summer festivals that Cedar Fair does at some of their parks is called Grand Carnival, and they have a parade, and they have all this different food you could be tasting, and they have all these different activities. It's just really fun. Epcot and Walt Disney World, they do the International Food and Wine Festival. Some parks do, like I said, those summer celebrations. I've been at SeaWorld in Orlando during their summer nights. I've also done Busch Gardens like that. They have concerts and events and pop-up performances, lots of fun. So always check what time of year, what's going on during that time of year, and the operating hours. And then, as I mentioned before, when you get into the Labor Day holiday and right after, a lot of parks start transitioning into their Halloween season. And so many have family-friendly things you can do during the day, but then they turn into more of scary stuff at night, like scare zones or haunted houses, or, other types of events that are going to scare the dickens out of you. So there's all of those things. And a word of note when it comes to the Halloween events, usually on Friday nights and Saturdays, are extremely crowded at your favorite park. So always know and remember that if you plan on going on a Halloween Saturday or a Friday night, it is going to be crowded, and you may experience lines that are even more expansive, longer than you would even experience in the summer months, because they're just, a lot of times there's not as many days. The Halloween, they might only be open again Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and people love that. So just be on the lookout for that when you're getting into the fall. And then remember that Christmas time, a lot of parks do things. I know Busch Gardens does Christmas time. Dollywood does a Christmas. There's a lot of Cedar Fair parks that have a Winterfest event. So watch out for your winter events. A lot of times those might be open again, weekend nights, and then maybe the week of Christmas and New Year's, things like that. So watch out for those events as well. So now you've decided, all right, I know where I want to go, and I know when I want to go. Let's talk about tickets. So there's lots to talk about when it comes to tickets. The first tip I'm going to give you with regards to tickets is you need to determine how many days you are going to visit and what type of package that you want to get. So let's talk about that. If you are going to a resort style park, let's say we're going to Disney, okay? Specifically Disney World, but Disneyland in California works very similar. Universal parks work similar to this as well. But again, always check, because things could change by the time you see this video and when I've recorded it. So right now, if you go to Disney World, it may be about $140 to $150 just for one park for one day. That's not including anything else. But if you go for example, 6 days, and you buy a 6-day ticket, instead of it being $140 to $150 a day, it might be $110 a day. So you're going to save per day, but you're obviously spending more money because you're going for more days. So you need to watch the amount of days you're going to be going, especially at those resort style theme park destinations. But it also works in the regional theme parks and local theme parks as well. You also need to watch for when you're going to those parks, is the water park attached, or do you need a separate ticket for the water park? And we're going to talk about that even more in a bit. But when it comes to the ticket packages, make sure you are fully aware of how many days, and is there a discount for going more days than less days. Now, some regional and some local theme parks also offer preview tickets. So you might buy a ticket for, let's say, a Friday, and you decide to go on Thursday, and you get there at maybe 5 o'clock at night. Some regional theme parks will offer a preview, meaning you could go for free the night before from 5 to close. Some may also offer discount tickets for the night before. You might be able to go for half the price, and you can add that on to your package. So watch out for that as well. And I'm not saying that the big destination parks don't do that, but you always want to watch for that as well, because sometimes you'll see that. Now, local parks sometimes offer a different ticketing system. For example, Knoebels in Pennsylvania offers free admission to get in, but then you buy ride tickets for the rides. You could buy maybe an all-day ticket, or maybe you buy a ticket book, or you pay per ride. But be careful of that too. There was a park in Pennsylvania also, Conneaut Lake Park, that many of you might have been familiar with if you're from Ohio or Eastern Ohio and Western Pennsylvania. Conneaut Lake Park was like that too. You just bought ride tickets and you just walked in for free. I remember going as a kid, my grandparents would go and they would never pay anything because they didn't ride anything. They just went for just to go. So there are parks out there like that, but just always watch how many days and how much the price can fluctuate based on the day. So there's also parks out there that offer things with your tickets, like free soda, like Holiday World does. But we're going to talk about add-ons in a little bit, kind of planning your add-ons like soda and food and those types of things. So just watch out for the deals, okay? Now, I want to come back to this topic of water parks. Some parks, as I've mentioned, have a water park included with the theme park. So as of the time of this recording, many Six Flags parks, many Cedar Fair parks, and other parks have water parks attached to the main theme park. So if you decide that water parking is the thing that you want, you may save some money going to somewhere that has a water park attached. Here's my thing when it comes to water parks. I always allow myself at least a half a day more to experience a park that has a water park attached to it. So as an example, if I were to go to Hershey Park, and Hershey Park has a water park, I would not want to go for just 2 days because I feel Hershey Park needs 2 days just for rides and regular park stuff. I would want an additional day, a third day, to experience the water park. Now, whether I'm there for 6 hours in the water park or 4 hours will depend, but I like to have that additional block to enjoy the water park. Because one thing you don't want to do is rush through water park. There is so much stuff you can do in water parks and so much relaxation you can have when you're balancing yourself out by just laying and relaxing. So always remember that when it comes to a water park, you may want to think about, all right, do I want an extra day or a half day? And there's a lot more planning when it comes to the things you need to bring with you when you're going to a water park, which we will talk about in the next episode. So now that we've kind of talked about tickets and that, what about season passes? Well, when does that work for you? Well, here's my tip when it comes to season passes. If you are a resident, like a local resident of a big resort style theme park experience, like we could use Disney again. If you live in Orlando and you like to go to Disney, then maybe an annual pass works, right? Because you are going to spend less money for an annual pass than you will buying $144 tickets every time you go, okay? And the same goes for regional parks or those local theme parks. I feel, and you can do the math yourself, that if you go more than 2 times, more than 2 days, you need to buy a season pass. And there's a couple reasons for that. One big reason is parking. Most theme parks charge you $20, $25, $30, $35, maybe more, maybe a little less for parking. Now, if you buy so let's use me as an example. I have a season pass to the Cedar Fair parks this coming year, 2024. I have a gold season pass and I have an all park passport, which allows me to go to all the parks in the Cedar Fair chain. So that ran me around $120 just for the pass, and then I had to add on the passport, which I think was another 100 or so. But here's the deal. If I were to go, let's say, to Kings Island one time and I bought and I was going to go for a couple days, I would spend $45 a day. So let's say I go for 3 days, 45, 45, 45. That would be around $135, right? But if I buy a gold pass today, not the price that I got it at a renewal price, but if you buy it just on your own, right now it's $145, or a summer pass is $110. So are you willing to pay per day, or do you just want to get a season pass? That doesn't include parking either. Those daily prices I gave you, $45 a day to go to Kings Island, doesn't mean that the parking, whatever much they charge, $25 or $30 to park, that's not included. So the pass itself gives you the either discounted or free parking choices. So I always recommend getting the 3 day. If you're going more than 2 days, you get to that third day, get the pass. Now, when it comes to those big like resort style parks and those really all of the parks, we'll say all of the parks, they do have packages that you could bundle things together. So if you're like, I don't want to commit to a season pass, many of them have bundles. You can buy maybe like a hotel, especially the resort style ones where you can stay on property, like Cedar Point, for example, or maybe if you're going to Disney again or Universal, or even some of the SeaWorld properties have this. Knott's Berry Farm has this. You could bundle, okay, I want a ticket and I want a hotel stay and I get parking included with that. And it might give me early entry, and it might give me this particular meal plan, or it might give me this drink package, and then you might get a VIP thing, whatever. Always watch for ticket deals too. If you just don't want to do a season pass and you're just making this your vacation for 4 or 5 days, or even 3 or 4 days, watch for those, because a lot of the parks will allow you to bundle things together and save you some money. So we're going to talk more about these add-ons now. So now that we've talked about, where are you going? When are you going? And what type of ticket do you need? What about add-ons? So there's a lot of things you can do with add-ons in many of these parks. The first is obviously a hotel stay. So if you're flying somewhere, obviously you have to bring in the cost of your flight when it comes to budgeting, but you also need hotel stays. So if you're going for more than one day and you're going to spend the night, budget for a hotel. Now, personally, I like to stay at hotels that have a breakfast because that is a cost-saving measure. If I can eat breakfast in the morning before I go to the park, that is one less thing I have to spend money on. So I recommend highly that you stay at a hotel that has a breakfast. Now, if you're staying at a Disney property or you're staying at a Universal property or some of these properties that you're on site, a lot of times you don't get a continental breakfast. However, there may be a dining plan involved where you can add on dining and you can eat breakfast as part of that. But always try, if you are not staying like on a resort property and you have somewhere there's an option to do a continental breakfast, always go there. What about early entry? Now, some parks have early entry. You might be able to get in a half hour before, an hour before. You might even be able to stay an hour later or a half hour later. Some hotels offer that when you're staying at their property. Or some parks, I should say, offer that when you're staying at their property, at that hotel. So if you're staying at Cedar Point, you might get a half hour early entry. Some of the season passes come with early entry. You have to check that when you're getting ready to buy your tickets and plan. So what can you buy? Sometimes you can even buy early entry. It's like a little add-on. Can you buy that? Now remember that parking is also going to cost you, as I mentioned before. So be aware that when you're going for just the day, you may pay, and you don't have a season pass, you may be paying for parking. What about meal plans? Well, now we're talking about eating, which we're all going to need to do while we're there is eating. We're just talking food, nothing to drink yet, just food. Many parks offer a day meal plan. Some offer season-long meal plans. The Cedar Fair parks, for example, the pass that I have a all-season, all-park dining. That means I can go to any Cedar Fair park and I can eat 2 times a day as long as there's a 4-hour window in between. Some other parks might have a little less window or a little bit of a bigger window. Some parks might say, okay, you can eat every 90 minutes and you also get snacks included. Some may include drinks in the cost of the meal plan. So always do your homework when it comes to that. Most meals at most parks are going to run you anywhere from $15 or $16 to $25 without a drink. So know that before you go. If there's 5 people in your party and you're going to be spending $20 a piece on one meal just on food, get ready. So understand, meal plans are really, really nice. Plus, I love the idea of not having to decide, oh my gosh, where are we going to go eat? I don't know. Do I want this? Do I want that? Do I want this? Do I want that? With a meal plan, you literally can just go to most of the restaurants and get something very good, and portion size is generally very good at most of the parks. So understand that a meal plan, I love meal plans. I highly suggest them. And then they have drink plans too. And I'm not talking alcohol. We're just talking about soda or fountain drinks. A lot of places have souvenir cups that you can buy for the day, which then turns into maybe you have it for the year. Maybe it's 99-cent refills. Maybe it's all season long refills. Again, I'll come back to my example, the pass that I have for the Cedar Fair parks, and I have one for Hershey that's the same way. It offers season long drinks. But just watch to make sure that your drink package includes all the year. Some parks don't have food or drink that last in their winter events, or their Halloween might be separate. So always watch that as well when it comes to when you're buying food or drink plans. Make sure that it's included for as much value as you're going to get out of it when you're going. Now on to fast passes. I personally am not a fast pass person. If you are a person who is going to a park because you want to ride the coasters, like that's your intention. Remember, we go back to the intention. Like you want to marathon these coasters. You want on, off, on, off. You don't want to wait in line. Then get the fast pass. It's called something different at all the different parks. Disney has Genie Plus, and you can add on certain things with Lightning Lane. You can do, Universal has a fast, I think they call theirs Fast Pass Express or something. I can't remember off the top of my head. Cedar Fair's is called Fast Lane. Six Flags has a Skip the Line. A lot of other parks have, these particular skipping the line options. When you go to your park, if you have a season pass and you're going multiple times, for me personally, I don't see a reason to get it, because that means I can just go whenever I want, ride it whatever I want, whenever I want. But if you are going there and you really want to get on all of the rides, as many as you can, get the fast pass for your day. Now, some parks offer a season long. They're expensive too. They can run you about $1,000, maybe $900 for one season. But again, if you're a coaster enthusiast or you're a ride enthusiast and you want to ride as many rides as you can, then that might be worth it for you. But if you're just going and you are going to enjoy just the experience, or you're going for multiple days, might not be worth it for you. Don't forget about another thing when it comes to add-ons: rentals, like lockers, like strollers, like mobile transportation, like wheelchairs or electric scooters. Those things you can also reserve a lot of times ahead of time. In fact, I recommend that, because a lot of times if you go on a very busy day, the park could run out of those things. So you may want to think about adding on those types of things. Maybe an all-day locker, maybe a traveling locker. Some parks have lockers where you can take something out of one locker and put it in another set of lockers, but you've paid for the whole day and you can kind of move your things around throughout the park. So always check on that. And then also photo packages. Many of you like to take pictures if there's characters, if there are certain photo spots you want to have. Maybe you want the pictures that the ride takes when you're on it. Many parks have a photo pass. So you may also consider, okay, do I want to buy a photo pass for whatever dollar amount that is for the day? And a lot of parks have season long photo passes. I personally am not a photo pass person. You might be, but if you find value in it, then buy it. And lastly, the other add-on you need to be aware of is transportation. If you are flying somewhere and you don't have a car or a rental car, you need to arrange transportation to get yourself to and from your park. Most all of the parks have drop-off zones where a Uber will drop you off, or a Lyft, or whatever ride share you use, or if someone else is bringing you, or you're taking a shuttle from a hotel, or there's other transportation. Be aware that there could be an additional cost. So there's costs involved in hotel, early entry, parking, meal plans, drink passes, fast passes, rentals like lockers and things, photo packages, and transportation. Now let's go on to the last tip for this video when we're talking about planning, and that is budgeting extra money for other things. So when you're planning and you have your budget, and I'm not going to talk to you about how to make a budget for a theme park trip, because that's so individual and so unique to everyone, and it all depends on why you're going and what you want to do and all of that. You need to figure out the budget that fits for you and your family or your friends or whomever you're going with, or even if it's yourself. Like I go solo a lot. You might think about how you're going to maneuver the budget when it comes to whomever's going. Think about things that you're going to want to do in the park. Like maybe you want to get your face painted or get one of the temporary tattoos. What about playing games? Do you like to play games and win the prizes? Budget for that. What about premium experiences like taking a VIP or behind the scenes tour? If you go to a park that has animals with it, like Busch Gardens or SeaWorld or some Six Flags parks or wherever there might be an animal, you may have a behind the scenes animal tour like you would have at some zoos that you go to. Maybe you're in a budget for that. What about a VIP lounge? Some parks are now, this is a big trend that's starting, is a lot of times parks are selling VIP tickets for the day that get you into these VIP lounges. Now, the perks inside the VIP lounges, to me, are questionable. They're questionable. I wouldn't find value in getting water or a bag of chips or maybe even an extra soda in a VIP lounge, or even sitting underneath something with a fan. Like I can find all of that somewhere else. But if you like that, maybe you're going to spend the money on it, and you might get it for the whole season. Some parks offer kind of more of a upgraded pass that gives you these additional perks, which also might include some fast pass tickets. So be aware of that. Or they may encompass bring a friend ticket, like for free, or bring a friend at a discounted price. Those things happen. So plan if you want to do something special. If you're in a water park, you might want a cabana rental. So that's stuff you want to budget for. Also, budget for food that's not included in your plan. If you have just a standard meal plan, it might be 2 meals a day. That doesn't mean you're going to have ice cream, or it might not have a funnel cake, or it might not have the French fries that you want, the special ones. So you may need to be spending a little bit of an additional amount on the food that you're not eating in your meal plan. Same goes for drinks. If you are a alcohol drinker and you want to have a cocktail during the day or a nice cold beer, that's extra. So no park that I'm aware of, and if I'm wrong, make sure I know about it. No park that I know of has an unlimited drinking package as far as alcohol is concerned. Except the only one I know of is Discovery Cove that's in Orlando, which is part of the SeaWorld family. That's a little different though. It's kind of like a day resort. We're not going on rides and things there. So to my knowledge, there's no parks that have alcohol included. So budget for that as well. And finally, think about your incidentals. And merchandise. Are you going to buy things? Are you going to buy shirts? Are you going to buy a hat? Are you going to buy, I have this, if you're watching on YouTube, I have this wand here that I brought with me into the room today. This was a wand that I bought when I went to Kings Island's Winterfest, and it lights up and it blows bubbles. And what I could do with this wand, if you're listening, you might hear it. But what I could do with this is when they had the parade, it would sync up to the parade and it would light up and blow bubbles at certain times. And there were certain zones within the park that I could take this to, and it would change lights. You could also interact with other people and kind of aim it at their wand and it would light up and blow bubbles. And it was super fun. So you may have something like this you want to buy, right? So you might be buying, as I mentioned, the clothing. You might be buying other things like coffee mugs or souvenirs that you're going to take home, magnets and other stuff, right? You might be buying your candies like your homemade fudge or so always have merchandise in mind and have the extras, the extra incidentals. What if you forgot your pain medication at home, or you need motion sickness medication or something? You might have to stop in the gift shop and buy those. But here's a tip for you. A lot of times, the first aid stations at the parks, if you're feeling motion sickness or you have a migraine, a lot of times they will dispense over-the-counter medication. Don't take me at my word for that every time, but I'm saying sometimes that works. So you may want to go into the first aid and see if you can get something if you forgot it or you can't, or the budget isn't there, and whatever the case may be, try that too. So now that you have planned your trip, you have, okay, I know where I want to go. I know when I want to go. I know how many days I want to go. I kind of know, do I want to do meals? Do I want to do this? How much do I need for incidentals? How do you balance everything out? And how do you really take from your trip exactly what you want from your trip, which you have the intention and you have the joy setting, right? You want joy, you want happiness, you want to have a good time. Theme parks are not a place to go and argue. I've seen so many people going to these parks and arguing. In fact, I was at Disney World one time and people that I knew were acting foolish while a parade was going on. So your emotions are to be in check when you are in a theme park. And it's important to create balance when you're in these places because you're dealing with crowds and heat and hungry kids, people who are impatient, anything can happen. So be prepared. When you are in a park, there's lots of stuff that's going to happen. So what do you really want to take from your trip, and how can you be the most prepared so that you can avoid meltdowns and yelling and screaming matches and screaming children, or moving your way through where there's impatience or there's lines that you have to stand in, or you're in crowded areas going to see a show, or people are bumping you and people are on their phones and they're not looking. All of this stuff we're going to talk about in the next episode, as well as what in the world do I need to bring with me? What do I need to bring for a solid day? What are the things I can't bring anymore into theme parks, and what can I? All of this in the next episode. And so we'll continue this in 1 week. And so until then, I'm wishing you a great theme park planning session because you deserve it. I'll see you all next time.